Okay, we are live. Welcome back to the Prospero.ai stock market live stream. We have a bunch of great topics to get into today. It's a very interesting day in the markets as the QQQ is almost 2% higher on the day while the Dow Jones is red. So a lot of rotations underneath the surface going on. We're going to get into all of the big cap tech news stories, and there is a lot of them going on in the markets right now. We're going to get into the CPI data, which was released this morning. We have one of our favorite stocks in the Prospero signals, that being Broadcom, making some headlines today and also having earnings tomorrow. So we'll cover that. And like I said, a lot happening in the major tech stocks. So we have Apple, which is making headlines by introducing the ChatGPT, the long-awaited AI feature, into the iPhone, and the stock reacting to that, and the stock on the precipice of hitting a major milestone and being the first one to do so. So I'll let all of our viewers know what that is. And we have Tesla hitting a new all-time high today, which a video of ours, George, is resurfacing where I asked you, if Trump's elected, will Tesla hit a new all-time high? And, surprise, surprise, you predicted it would, and it has already. So we'll get into Tesla and maybe what shareholders should think from here now that the stock has already had that fantastic performance.
Are people going back to that video now?
Yeah. It's being watched by some of our. Actually, the algorithms are just showing it to people, so that's cool. But we have Google.
Oh, it's nice. Normally, the algorithms only like things that people hate of ours. That SoundHound one was getting so much attention, and it didn't even make any sense.
You're right, and I just saw our first positive algorithm treatment with AMC. Someone who had like 7,000 subscribers on YouTube shared one of our clips with their community on YouTube, and saying, "Check out the comments; they're crazy on this video." So that was very interesting to see. Finally, someone, a brave soul venturing out there in the open against the AMC apes with us. But we were on an island for a second with all of those comments. But yeah, that was cool to see.
Oh, yeah.
We have Google releasing a lot of tech updates this week with quantum computing, their AI tool, Gemini. One of the piece of this story that I told you, you said it was a little bit concerning. So our viewers will have to stick around to them to see which aspect of it was that. And then we have Jeff Bezos. Like I said, we're kind of going through the gambit of the major tech companies today, but Jeff Bezos had a quote about Blue Origin, not Amazon. And we were talking about it and how Jeff Bezos is usually a bit more reserved. So when you guys hear this quote, maybe it'll get people excited about those areas of the market. And then to end off the stream today, I'm going to make George give some predictions, which he doesn't like to do, but we'll see if we can draw them out of him. And then we'll turn it over to the model portfolio update at the end of the stream. But let's start off the stream today with the SPY net option sentiment remaining low, even though we're seeing rallies in the markets taking place. Like I was saying, it's mostly in big cap tech, so maybe that's why people are hedging or whatever they're doing with the SPY. But what do you make of that action that we're seeing and how we're seeing the QQQ and the SPY net option sentiment get so separated?
It's all the way up to 23 now, SPY, but QQQ's at 51. Yeah, I mean, I think where we're at on this is, I see my camera having some problem focusing. I think where we're at on this is that there's a lot of reasons to be bullish on tech stocks, especially like that's what we always talk about. That's why that's kind of always been our strategy, because you see something with Google and quantum computing, and we've referenced that as one of their upsides. And I think when we say whenever I talk at places, and I said this at the Finimize, I said things like IonQ. I actually specifically called out quantum computing as a growth subsector. But what I said was, in the end, I'd still bet on the cloud providers above everything, just because they have so much talent, so much money, such like entrenched R&D advantages that, yeah, I think that when you're looking at the market and who's going to win as the clear march of tech advantages happen, you kind of have to not only look at the cloud providers, but large tech companies in general.
And so this morning, this has spurred the kind of market rally today, but we got the CPI report. So it came in at 0.3% for the month, and it came in at 2.7% year over year. And the Fed has repeated that they have this 2% target that they want to get inflation down to. But we're still cutting rates, and it looks like we'll continue that next week with the Fed meeting. So does this CPI report change anything in your mind with the Fed's path?
That's Powell's favorite thing to say. I feel like I've heard him say 2% target like more consistently than anything else. I don't know if that's a traditional, like historical Fed thing, or, oh, that's interesting. We checked earlier in the week and it was 86% for a cut. And now even with this inflation report, it's 95. So there you go. It's people are that much more sure. And I think what we're looking at is that, I think inflation has cooled enough. It might not be perfect where everybody wants it to be, but a lot of the issues that were happening with inflation were supply issues. And I think a lot of those supply issues are now negated. Granted, tariffs, some of the things that, the story we talked about earlier in NVIDIA, it could change that. But as of now, the supply issues underlying that look mostly solved. And I think that that's the big thing that's giving them, more comfort, everybody more comfort.
So one of the companies I wanted to bring up today, because they've been a leader in our signals for a while now, and you've talked about them on the stream a bunch, is Broadcom, Avgo. They have earnings tomorrow, which I wanted to talk about anyway, but then this news story came out today about how Broadcom is working with Apple on a new AI chip, which sent the stock higher, which is cool to see. Just all of these examples of the Prospero signals being bullish on a company, and then a major headline comes out, in the weeks, months, or days after the signals look so positive. But how do you feel about Broadcom after the story and heading into earnings? There's been a big rally this year. Do you think the stock can continue?
Yeah, I mean, we always kind of talk about Broadcom as our safest chip stock. Just because they are, they're very good, I would say, especially their deal with Apple, they have deals with like car companies. They're very good with embedding themselves within areas and using partnerships like that, which is why we refer to them kind of as like the most stable chip investment. But we just don't like chips very much right now. We're looking at other things. It wouldn't be our recommendation. And it's like the same thing where in reverse, like where we talk about like using our macro view to inform things. And I'd say that previously because before, a stock like Tesla looked really good in our signals. But we preferred stocks that look similarly like Broadcom because we like the macro situation around Broadcom better than Tesla. Now, with the election, kind of changing that macro situation, that's moved. So I think now Broadcom is a stock where, even though it's the chip stock I would go to first if I went to one, we don't really like the situation around chip stocks right now. So it's kind of in that reverse position.
And I see Mario saying, what's up in the chat? Good to see you in the stream, Mario. Thanks for stopping by. I just have one more question on Broadcom. I think I peeked at the market cap today, and it was like 820-ish billion. So about maybe it was a little bit more than that. Maybe it was 840. But I think about a 20% move would make it $1 trillion company. Would you be surprised if that happens next year with how you're speaking about it? Or do you think that's 50-50, likely? What do you think heading into 2025 for Broadcom?
I think if earnings look good tomorrow, especially with this news story, that's absolutely a possibility.
So that's interesting because you're like not interested in it from what you're saying, but you think it is possible for it to make a 20% move. So can you break that down for people? Because I think they'll be a bit confused or kind of like questioning why that would be the case in your mind.
There's a lot of stocks that I think could make a 20% move. But I'd rather own App. I'd rather own Tesla. I'd rather own Coinbase because I think they have that ability to make that same kind of 20% move and then have a higher floor. Like I am kind of worried about the international, trade situation. I am nervous that a lot of these chip stocks like got pretty highly valued relative to their earnings, and these other stocks that maybe weren't inflated as much or don't have kind of clear political reasons to go up, like we see with Coinbase and Tesla, and App is more of like it's earlier in its growth cycle, so it's a different thing there. But yeah, I think a lot of stocks have that potential, and what we're always trying to do is minimize risk.
And we have another company making a milestone in their market cap, or about to, approaching it. Apple is nearing $4 trillion market cap, which would be the first time a company ever hit that milestone. And they announced today that ChatGPT is going to be available in iPhones, which may be the reason why the stocks have rallied recently. But I thought it was cool to see. It's been cool to see the way that the large cap tech stocks have moved recently after we called out how they had been consolidating a few weeks ago. And now they're kind of catching up in this Santa rally end of year bullishness that we're seeing take place. But I don't know. Apple's quietly moved higher, all-time highs approaching 4 trillion. Things are good in Tim Cook's world, huh?
Yeah, I mean, I think Apple is just I think a lot of it is exciting around what this excitement around like what this GPT partnership could do. And I think that, Apple was kind of losing ground on some of these devices. And if that partnership goes well, I think that could be really huge for them. And I think there's kind of excitement around that. And that could be something that causes, we always talk about them innovating, right? But they might essentially be, not really innovating, but drifting off OpenAI's innovations, which would be smart. That's kind of like a later stage Apple situation. But yeah, I think we're seeing a lot of excitement about that. We're seeing like a lot of energy towards the market in general. But I do think like the reason we're seeing that positive price movement is optimism around what that could do for device sales.
Do you think Buffett's getting a little bit nervous having gone to so much cash? And I think he sold about half of his Apple position this year. It's not looking like a great move so far. You think day by day as these stocks go up, Buffett's like, oh, I don't know if I was right about this call.
I don't think Buffett cares. That's not how he goes. Like what makes him great is he's got his prices and his levels. And if things go above that, he is just not interested. Right. And like what he will do, like this is going to come crashing down to earth at some point. Right. Is it 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 years from now? Who knows? It is like, I will say this is kind of early in the cycle. If it does go on for like, let's say the first term of Trump, for example, for 4 years. But he doesn't care. He's trying to buy things. And where I'd say he's right is when it does correct, right? He could probably get in lower, close to this price. And that's what he's counting on, right? He just wants to buy things. He wants to buy things at better values. Now, he might see a bull, like he might have just been worried about the whole thing. And then when he sees that we're, going into a more clear bull market, he might say, okay, I'm going to buy back into what I see value in. And I do believe he can always find value. But, in his mind, if he hasn't deployed the cash yet, he might be expecting a big correction this year. And it's kind of like what we said with Musk, and we were right. Like, you never know, like, if he's got some plan here. And you got to respect that he knows what he's doing because he's shown that. I think it's the same thing with Buffett.
And you mentioned how it's going to come crashing down to earth eventually. There will be, it just happened in 2022, right? So it's not so long ago that it had a year like that in the markets. I saw a stat mentioned today about how the market has been up 20% 2 years in a row, and it hasn't done that 3 years in a row since the 1990s. So how likely do you think we are to see a 20% year in the market next year? And, if not, do you still think it'll be green? What are
Wait,
the odds on that?
20% 2 years in a row?
Yeah, this would be the second year this year.
This would be, wow. That
And
bear market is.
it hasn't done three since the 1990s.
I thought last year was the bear year. Time flies. It was
Yeah.
really 2 years ago. Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow. All right. I mean, it's like what we're talking about. I think there's room for both people to be right. Like, it's just like, look, we're bullish because we expect Trump to support the stock market, right? Do whatever he can to support the stock market. And then someone like Buffett might say, okay, good luck. Like, I'm of the belief that he will, even if there's troubles, he will find a way to do it, even if that is mortgaging the future. But, where Buffett is at is probably like where you're at, right? Where it's going to be hard for this to continue, especially as long as, some of us might be expecting.
Yeah, and if it is to continue, some of the stocks we're about to talk about have to be the ones that perform, since the market is so top heavy, I guess, at this point. But Tesla, we have just making an amazing move in the second half of this year. It has now hit a new all-time high. I believe it topped out at 420 today. I'm sure Elon's watching for 420.69 like he always likes to do. But shares of Tesla are now up 66% this year, and we've been covering how bullish you've been on it. The signals have been on it, especially since Trump was elected. I thought it's time for me to take a different stance today and say it's had this run, it's hit all-time highs. We're heading into 2025. There's going to be a new playbook for investors. How do you feel about it? Can it have outperformance again next year, or is it going to be more dependent on the market and kind of trade as the QQQ would?
No, I mean, I think it could, just because like what we're essentially looking at with Tesla is this idea that more is coming their way through legislation, full self-driving, that kind of thing. Maybe even government grants, right, to roll out. Maybe that's why they slowed down the charging stations. Maybe he was expecting government grants to build the stations that he wouldn't have to pay for. So yeah, I think there's a lot of news, potential news. It's just like, it's the same thing we were just talking about with Google, where it's like, I'm betting on them over the long haul because they have such great R&D and such a great technology team. And they don't even have the government potentially helping them for the next 4 years or more, right? So I do think in that case that we're talking about, even if, let's say we're talking about the first 6 months of this Trump administration and nothing positive happens for Tesla, you could still be of the belief of like, it's about to get there. There's legislation coming. So that's the same type of thing. There's such a highly reasonable expectation that that's going to happen that there's really no point to not assume it can get to new heights around these news events. Because just remember, especially with Tesla, it doesn't even have to take the revenue or the ultimate profits. Like, the news is good enough.
And I think maybe part of the reason why the stock got boosted today was GM announced that they're kind of ending their self-driving venture. I saw that they spent $10 billion on Chevy Cruise throughout the past couple of years investing in it, which they're ending. So maybe that's less competition for Tesla now. And it's really just who's in the race for this? Tesla, Waymo, anybody else? It seems like,
I mean, if I put my conspiracy theory hat on for a second, they might be thinking what I've mentioned, that there could be some kind of exclusive with Tesla and the government, and they have their lobbyists might have already heard whisperings of that, right? Because honestly, that makes more sense than just pulling the plug on something you've invested $10 billion on, right? You might want to give it your shot to throw your hat in the ring. Now, they did have some problems with one of their cars, hitting someone in San Francisco, and that was a big setback for them. But at the same time, that's basically something that is going to happen with any, like we've talked about that before. Like there are going to be self-driving cars hitting people, and we're going to have to figure out how to get our way around that. But that's what makes the most sense to me. It makes the most sense to me that they heard something that Tesla was going to have some inside track to self-driving rollout, and that's what made it not worthwhile to them. And maybe they didn't even hear that. Maybe they're just anticipating that. That's also very reasonable. But if you've invested $10 billion on something and you like suddenly pull a plug on it, the timing is pretty suspect that it doesn't have anything to do with them, at least not like anticipating that they're going to face more difficult conditions than Tesla on a self-driving rollout.
And with this move, Elon Musk's net worth surpassed $400 billion. So he has Tesla, then SpaceX, which has a valuation about $350 billion now, and Neuralink, and the list goes on. So many companies. Do you think he could be a trillionaire by the end of this decade if all goes right?
Yes, definitely.
And I didn't even mention.
But in this world, no, I mean, I'm only kind of joking. I would say in this new world, that might put him at risk of getting killed. Maybe you don't want to be the next trillionaire. But that's a joke because I'm sure his security is like absolutely insane. I'm sure it's crazier than like a lot of world leaders at this point. But I mean, while I'm joking about that, and I don't think Elon Musk, it is something that we didn't really talk about that. And I was reading securities going up, but it is something that I think it's one of those things that there's two ways that it can go. People are definitely upping their security, but it's going to be interesting to see, especially in healthcare. I saw a really funny Marjorie Taylor Greene quote today saying she was afraid that this murder might result in single payer health, as if like that was such a horrible thing to get. But yeah, I'd say this is it's interesting to see what's happened there. And I think above all, we might be seeing, wealthy people thinking about how they, flaunt their wealth differently. I don't think one is enough, but I also think the fact that this just like random 26-year-old got away with this is probably causing some other people to say, some other frustrated people to say, maybe I want to do that too.
Yeah, we talk about the top 1% all the time and how it's just, not spread equally throughout the United States of American citizens. So hopefully that gets corrected. And, Prospero,
there's a lot of like, people don't talk about it. There's a lot of suicides in this country, mm-hmm. right? And it might be something that more people think about if they're going to go out anyway. Well,
hopefully not.
I mean, I hope for the sake of, myself and other CEOs, although I do intend to be a lot nicer and generous with people. So hopefully that's everything. But maybe I have to worry about those AMC people.
Well, you live in the city. Do you ever get nervous at all?
I mean, my philosophy is that I'm actually trying to help people, and that I'm not really worried about that kind of stuff because of it. But maybe I should go easier on those AMC people.
Yeah, that's funny. I don't know how we got here, but I forgot to mention in the beginning when I said Elon's net worth, that's without his pay package. So that would add on over 100 billion at this point if it ever goes through. So yeah, he's doing all right.
Yeah. Poor Elon. He needs that pay package.
Yeah. I don't even know what money means at that point. If you have hundreds of billions of dollars, it's just insane to think about.
I mean, I do think there's like, I think some people, when they're thinking about having that much money, they're probably just thinking about like vacationing and gallivanting around the world. And I think he does like a little of that, but he's like such a hard worker. I think his life probably doesn't look that much different at, 400 billion than it did at like 10 billion, right? I think he's still probably living like, maybe he owns more property, like, but other than that, like his life probably, and I mean, I guess he could buy whole companies like Twitter X. But I'm guessing his work schedule is very busy and he's very like, passionate about that. So yeah, I wouldn't guess that his life is all that different.
So I want to spin to Google now, and I think the last time we talked about Google on stream, it seemed like the first time I ever heard you speak about them, where you were starting to doubt if they could get this AI thing headed in the right direction, the way they've just not been able to roll out products, and how you've always mentioned you thought they had the best tech, but it just wasn't seeming like the market was giving them the benefit of the doubt there. But this week, I think that all changed with some of the releases and pieces of tech that they've put out. I saw a quote from one of Google's releases this week, which was pretty funny. They said that their new quantum computer can do in 5 minutes what a classical supercomputer would do in the history of the universe, the time it took. So I think that line got the market excited. I saw they possibly have a wormhole somewhere that they've created with their tech, and the stock has reacted very bullishly. So are you back on Google's side and a believer now in their tech? I don't know if you are off of it, but
I did add them yesterday. I mean,
okay.
but to the investing portfolio, but no, I mean, it's kind of like it's kind of a similar answer to what I said about Broadcom, right? I always liked Google, right? I always thought that, like, especially their PE ratio was a good value for what you're buying in terms of how much tech and research ability they have. But it just didn't look as good in the signals as some other stocks. And when that changed, we were happy to add it to our portfolio again. But, I would say that, there's probably a little something extra, right? Like I'm definitely willing to add a stock like Google or even Eli Lilly, which is upside. I mean, that didn't pay off as much as it looks like Google is. I'm definitely willing to add a stock like that, just because I'm familiar with it and I like its long-term, macro potential when I see it creeping up in the signals. But no, it was at the top of our short-term bull picks yesterday, and there you go.
Can you talk about this point a little bit more? Because we have a lot of viewers, 1,400 people. I'm sure there's someone who's new here today, about how you use the Prospero signals and how you want people to use the Prospero signals, where you kind of use your own inputs as well, and you kind of mold your investing with them. So you want to give your rundown of like how you think about that again for anybody who's new?
Well, I mean, I'm either using the screener that I put in the newsletter every weekend, and that takes some time to assemble. So that's the primary way that I'm finding stocks. But then in week, I'm just looking in the app, short-term bull, long-term bull, short-term bear, both. Yeah. That's how I recommend. Sometimes I also use the screener that I put in. I haven't been as good as updating that. I really should do that more, but I've been super busy. Yeah, I think that I use the letter. I use the app in those sections. Sometimes I'll look in the app for highest or lowest upside breakout, net option sentiment. Sometimes I'll look at dark pool just to see what's going on there. Same with downside breakout. Those are the primary ones I use. Sometimes social sentiment. And I'll just look at those tops and bottom listed, or highest and lowest. But what I've been using more and more is momentum score. I have that in the letter, and especially on exits is where I use momentum score. I really built it for that, just to get a feel for if a stock is really, moving up or down. And actually, Google, I had seen it in the app, and then I saw it very high in momentum score, and that kind of clinched it for me.
And for anybody who is new and wants to see George make some live moves. Stick around to the end of the stream because that's when we do the model portfolio update. So you'll get to kind of see how the sauce is made behind the scenes when we do that later. The next story I want to talk about is Jeff Bezos. He was interviewed by Andrew Ross Sorkin, and he was talking about Blue Origin, and he was quoted as saying, "I think it's going to be the best business that I've ever been involved in." And I heard that quote and how bullish kind of we've been talking about the space industry and some of these stocks in the Prospero that have looked good. And I got super excited because I feel like Jeff Bezos is not one to boast about his companies like, the way maybe Elon Musk or some other CEOs would. So I feel like his words really hold weight when he speaks. Do you feel the same way? And do you think that prediction could come true? I mean, Amazon, how could you beat Amazon? I don't know.
So for those that don't know, yeah, I mean, how could you beat Amazon? I agree. That's lofty. But I think what he's thinking when he says that, for those that don't know, one of the reasons that everybody is excited about space is people are planning to like mine asteroids. and that's where all the money is in space, like precious metals, maybe even space tourism, space colonization. Like, remember how much that land in the metaverse like sold for? Imagine like you colonize, like you're like a Blue Origin real estate developer. All of a sudden, who owns Mars? I don't think anybody owns Mars. I think it's kind of like the new world, right? When you explore, like you own where you build. So I think if you're talking about like mining, you're talking about like basically international real estate development and tourism. It could be big. Now, why anyone would want to go to Mars, that's beyond me. I don't want to like. Maybe if it was super safe, I'd want to get into a spaceship and like go like around, especially if it was faster travel. Like if I could go to like if I could like visit Japan and like do that in like a few hours because I was like going up in a spaceship and I could save time too. That would be great. I would definitely do that. But I have no desire to go to Mars. Like, I don't know. I want to go to the beach. That's really the only place I want to go. Maybe like a nice old city, and maybe Mars would be like the most modern, like coolest like tech. But like whatever you can build on like Mars, you could also build on the Earth in terms of like amenities, technology, that kind of thing. And you can go outside. I mean, I don't know. Maybe it would kind of be cool to hop around in low gravity. But the other side to that is you could just like hop right out into the like off the planet. That's like not really in my risk profile. Or like you get hit with a rock and then you the world is scary enough. This world. I don't need to go to a place where like I could die for reasons beyond what there are here. But I do think if he's talking about like especially those businesses together, yeah, they could be bigger than Amazon. They could be. I don't think so. There's some people. There's some people that are technologists that are just they think this is all going to happen way faster than I do. Like I probably think it's going to happen pretty fast relative to someone that's not in technology. But there's some people that are just like, well, there's going to be no more business at the end of this year because LLMs are going to take over the whole workforce, right? I'm not there. But there's some people that are. And I hope they're not right because that would be a lot.
Well, that final point was something I was going to say. Like, I'm totally with you there. I agree that these space businesses are going to be massive and it's very exciting. And I think it will come true. But, it's more like decades in my mind than years. So, like, investing in it just seems so early.
Well, I think Bezos was talking about like maybe beyond his lifetime. But why are we talking about that? I think he meant like after he died, probably, because like no, it's crazy to think that one of these businesses is going to be worth more than Amazon in like a decade or two. And how much more does he have? I mean, he's probably trying to live forever. Let's be like, I'm sure he's got something in the works.
Oh, no doubt, he's going to be like Walt Disney with his brain frozen and then uploaded in whatever cloud, Amazon cloud in 50 years.
Imagine if we have to start dealing with that, right? Like we just have like all of these like only the rich people, like everybody else is dying. Like, we lose our parents and then we have to deal with like just the billionaires for the next, like, they're hanging around as cyborgs.
That is a thought I don't even want to have, because that is dystopian future with AI and the billionaires living
I
forever. And
know. Then they're
let's
just
hope
going to have
not.
this like billionaire cyborg club.
Let's
You
hope
know what?
not.
We talk about Buffett a lot. I feel like Buffett would turn that down. I think Buffett would be like, I'm ready to leave when it's like when it's my time. I'm ready to go.
Hmm. Yeah, he's always the wise one with the good head on his shoulders, I
But
feel
he
like.
eats McDonald's, right? That's the difference between him and like the other billionaires.
Hmm. All right, bringing this back into the market, I want
Back
to
down to
ask
earth.
you back down to earth. I want to ask you about 2025, because we are just a few weeks away. What worked in 2024 may not be the same thing that worked in 2025. What is your playbook to beat the market by around 50% for your fourth straight year? Do you think there's going to be some sector rotation, and maybe things that didn't work this year might work next year? What's the 2025 George Kalis playbook?
Um, I mean, I don't like to look that far into the future, but my playbook is pretty much the same every year, right? But how that playbook plays out is very different. Like I looked yesterday. I was on an X space, so some people might have heard this already, but I'll do a bit of a different version of it. We actually had 100 in this bull year. We actually had 100 more shorts than longs this year, and that's because what we're always trying to do is we're trying to get the big gainer longs, right, that are looking very good in our signals, and we're more patient with them. And then there's shorts that a lot of the times we're just cycling out of quickly if they don't pay off, right? And that's how we can have such great returns, because we're generally over covering our own asses with shorts on the downside part. And then we're being patient with the ideas that we really believe in, and kind of waiting for them to take off. And a lot of the time they do. So I think there's that, but then there's kind of like the macro interjection on top. And, I think we'll continue to look big tech, but like probably stay away from chips. I think we'll continue to look at like Trump friendly stocks that are like Coin and Tesla. I would love to buy a dip on Palantir. I just think it's doing such a crazy earnings run that I just like, and it doesn't even look, I don't know where it is in Prospero. I haven't seen it like high on momentum score or anything. It's all the way up to 93 upside, 81 net option sentiment. Yeah, it's a little lower. It was in the 90s. And it is on a bit of a rundown. Yeah, a bit. Was at 79 and now it's down to 71. So maybe this is our dip to buy. Damn, Palantir's at 71. 72. But yeah, I haven't seen it high on the momentum score, but that's another one that's like a Trump trade stock that I haven't quite gotten in on yet. But yeah, and then other than that, we'll just be, very open looking for our shorts, like a lot of the same names. And then, we'll always be on the hunt for like next year's AppLovin, right? And now we've even like that, we used to stumble upon those a little bit more, but now we're a little more focused, and we realize that, it's kind of when things are really good in our signals, when they're about like less than 50 50 billion market cap, that's an extra kind of signal that says like, oh, if it's ranking that high in our bull screener in the newsletter at that kind of market cap, this might be the next big thing. So we'll definitely be on the hunt for that now that we've like crystallized it even more. And that's the big thing about what we do. It's kind of all an amalgamation of collecting more processes and, always trying to improve on them, but being able to do that, and to, find new processes, improve on our existing ones, and just like collect and improve.
And something I've been meaning to ask you on the stream, so you mentioned the under 50 billion market cap, kind of how stocks, they rank high in the signals, they've outperformed a lot recently. Is it almost a self-fulfilling prophecy when you see a stock like that with, say, 100 upside and 100 net option sentiment? Because the positions are so bullish, does that kind of almost lead to the stock going higher, just the way people investing it are positioned, unless barring like a news event or something kind of breaks the theory? But people are already positioned so bullishly for the stock to go up. Like, how could it not essentially, unless something like new comes to the story of the
Yeah.
stock?
I mean, so to get 100 net option sentiment, obviously, like in the short term options markets, um, institutions have to be overwhelmingly betting more for than against, right? And then to get 100 upside breakout, we're looking at the long term options markets on the call demand side, right? And doing better in the long term options markets on the call demand side than the other stock. Then you're layering in analysts having their price targets above where you're trading and things like, buy, hold, sell recommendation ratios. And then there's price momentum factor. So the market is proving out on the momentum side that things are going well for you. So yeah, like whenever you get all of those things together, adding up 100, we've only seen it with Coinbase and Meta. Hopefully we see another stock that makes it that easy for us again. Because yeah, that's been a signal that whenever we see it, stock is either already in a huge run and prepared to go a lot more, or getting ready to go on a huge run.
All right, it is that time in the stream. Are you ready to do the switch over? And we'll see you on the other side for the model portfolio update.
Let's do it.
All right, so chat, stick with me. We'll be back with George on the other side when he's in the Prospero.ai laboratory. Thank you all for tuning into the stream today. We've had over 1,600 people in the stream. What I'm going to do is I'm going to check up on our YouTube people and see if you've been liking it up, because I want to hit double digits on today's stream. I noticed that last stream we got a good amount of total views, so thank you so much for everybody. Hopefully you enjoy the topics we cover, the insights, and stock market news that we are giving. Let's see, are we at 10 on YouTube? Dun, da, da. We are at 8, so I need 2 more people to like the stream, and let's get to double digits today. And I'll give a live look at the net option sentiment for QQQ and SPY in Prospero right now, which will tell us probably how George is going to be positioning when he gets back here. So we have the QQQ at 47, which is bullish, and the SPY at 24. So it's beginning to recover from the lows it was hitting. I believe it got down to like single digits. Oh, it's only showing 21 in the time series graph, but I think it might have dipped lower than that yesterday. But yeah, that's how the market is looking right now. What we're going to be getting into here is George. Oh, we got up to 13 likes. Thank you all so much. That's awesome to see that total. I mean, it may not sound like a lot for a lot of you watching, but we're trying to grow this stream. So great that many people are liking it up. Oh, we have George back in here. Something that we didn't get to while George was in the other room on the stream today was a 4-year prediction for the stock market, which George said he didn't want to do. But if you want to see him do it, let us know in the comments right now, and I'll force him to next stream. So let's see some comments.
Yeah, we'll do it on the good camera.
Yeah.
If I'm gonna do it, I might as well at least have it on the good camera. Nobody wants to hear you torture me, Steven.
Maybe I'll have to comment myself. All right, so QQQ, we're looking at the net option sentiment right now. It is at 47, and the SPY is at 24.
47, 24. They're getting a little closer. Okay. Let me share my screen.
One stock I've been seeing in the Our Picks for the Prospero homepage is its ticker is PI. It's called Impinge. I've never heard of it before, so I figured I'd mention it.
PI?
Yeah.
Radio frequency identification. That sounds cool. We'll look at it at the end if we have time. Okay. Let's see. So you said, I didn't. Okay, you said 47 and
24.
what is this BY doing today? Yeah, I just wanted to verify that. I thought that, but okay.
This is a return to the norm for the last little bit with consumer discretionary, tech, and communications leading the way. Utilities and healthcare look like the best bear picks right now. Growth is on the menu again, as it was last week, but now we are back to the good old days where large cap growth is leading everything in the last month.
Oh, look, it's like retaking it over the year. Okay. This should be back now. We need both. Oh. That's interesting. 72QQQ there, but didn't need it anyway. Google's killing it. take a look. Definitely this. Yeah, that's looking good too. I don't think we want Broadcom. Do we want another Tesla? I think so. Damn, Whirlpool is a huge turnaround. Okay, Whirlpool. Well, we'll make an exception for you. Industrial. No, you're not. You're not good enough. UPS. No. Maybe we should do this. Materials one. I'll do the smaller materials one. Kohl's. Look at this turnaround. Should we do Microsoft too? Why not? Large cap tech is surging. Okay. Oops. Do we have a Rexer open? I think we might. We do not. Boy. We got utilities option. Good option. Let's see how this shakes out. Let's see how much we got on pick up. I think I want Hershey's. We're going to see how many we're dropping before we decide. Oh, we had 2 tests already. Oh. IBM fell fast. Okay, so we're not dropping that many longs. How many shorts? Oh, I didn't realize we shorted Dell. I forgot about that. Okay, where are we? 27 and 24. So we do want it. We definitely want to tilt. All right, now I'm feeling good about this. Okay. Okay, we got it. I think by the time I do this, it's going to be time, but whatever. Oh, we're getting a message about PI. We're just going to add it.
The Prospero signals always know.
All right. Any last questions?
I don't see any other questions in the chat. You know what's crazy? There's only 2 more full trading weeks left in 2024. How fast the year has went. And we've been here all along, hopefully guiding the people, giving them some value. But until next Monday, hope everybody has a good rest of the week in the market, and we'll be back here, I think regular time, but we'll see. See everybody.
Yeah. All right.
All right.
Thanks, everyone.
See you guys later.